So indulge me if you will. I would love to give you a quick snapshot of my entrepreneurial journey so far as an entrepreneur and then meeting motherhood. I was an imposter, isolated from and uninvited to rituals and routine. It was all a huge risk, miles away from anywhere. I had just launched Daily Addict, and it's an insider's lifestyle guide and electronic newsletter from my apartment's dining table in January 2008. And to launch Daily Addict, I left a fairly secure role at institutional bank State Street. I spent $30,000 of my personal savings and custom coded a website because there wasn't anything else at that stage. And this became the content feed for the first Australian grown lifestyle app on iPhone in 2009. I was, I guess, only one of a certain cohort at that time. There was a huge stigma in that year, and I was one of only 5 digital media bloggers at Fashion Week in Australia. I wasn't taken seriously. I didn't work for a masthead or a magazine. Let me just pop that volume down just a little bit so you can still hear me as I talk. Yes, there was only one of 5 media bloggers at Fashion Week. I didn't work for a masthead or magazine. I was only one of a handful that were tweeting from the runway. I shot all the terrible looks. People thought I was probably rude and arrogant as I was tweeting. And I was earning more than my husband at the time to be and flown around the world to beauty product launches and runway shows, this one being in New York. It was all really surreal. But you know what? The work mattered. It actually created a new media category. And before blogging or digital influencers was a thing, and within 3 years, I had bootstrapped my way to a daily subscriber base of about 25,000 and an organic growth, a social community of about 35,000. And I was also proud to be one of the very few women of Chinese descent on the Australian startup landscape. So fast forward to 2016, I'm now a mother of 4. That includes 2 digital and 2 real babies. I was the Melanie Perkins co-founder of Canva, pitching to more than 100 people and receiving rejections. I was Joe Palmer, the founder of Pointer Remote, people laughing at me that anyone would ever work remotely. I was the Victoria Stewart, founder at Beamable, people ignoring the possibilities of working part-time. And as the co-founder of Mums & Co, I'm here to tell you that women can have it all. Don't laugh, my all is defined as knowing how to harmonize ambition, livelihood, and well-being. And I'll go into a little bit more of that shortly. And over 5 years ago, I did set out to build a customized site. This was for women to start conversations and create a world where we don't have to actually choose between our careers and our caring responsibilities. We now have a network of over 27,000 all over Australia. And it's grown, you know, Mums & Co has grown from that newborn with lots of promise and newness to an evolved child that's ready to expand its reach to mums in business everywhere. It's a digital platform to connect us, whether we're in cities, regional or rural areas. And my dream has always been for Mums & Co to be that community where you can actually openly know when and where and how to ask for help. And that's de-risking the business owning journey. It's to be psychologically safe and having courageous conversations, to be collaborative and to be productive, to be assertive, and that's embracing your own ambition, your whole self, be loyal and make collective impact, and ultimately do what we call Mumbition, which is the unapologetic blending of your ambition and motherhood. This is certainly where we can say to each other that I believe in you, that your choices in ambition, livelihood and well-being and how you harmonize them are all yours. I certainly want you to have a full and abundant life. So let's take a global view of how far we've come and consider where we can go. There are about 680,000 business owning women in Australia. 1/6 of us are business owning mothers, and we're creating businesses at a faster rate than men. Flipper have actually shared that more than 11.6 million companies are owned by women. They employ about 9 million people and generate 1.7 trillion in sales. And if you look to the opportunity that we have, analysis by BCG shows that if women and men participated equally as entrepreneurs, global GDP could actually rise by approximately 3 to 6%, which will boost the global economy by 2.5 trillion to 5 trillion. In Australia alone, that could be worth between $71 and $135 billion. And these are, you know, we have to consider a little bit of the aspect of timing. Timing is everything. Entrepreneurship frequently aligns to when you're starting a family. In both Australia and US, the average age of first-time parenthood is now 30. It's having steadily increased over the past few decades. And whilst recognizing that we may not necessarily all aspire to be this, the typical unicorn started their business at age 34. And according to Harvard Business Review, the average age of a successful startup founder is 45. So let's say they start a little bit earlier. And this is about 37.2 years for Australian founders. So you can see that this decade, when you're starting a business, and you know, will essentially be a year of experiencing firsts for women, both at the home front and the business front. Interestingly, in a survey of almost 900 businesswomen across Australia, Mums & Co found that 9% started their business whilst pregnant, and almost 1/3 started their business whilst on parental leave. And it's really interesting to note that the most ambitious and significant recommendation of a recent Women's Economic Participation Review in New South Wales, which is the state where I live in Australia, to create generational change across the New South Wales economy is a long-term commitment to guarantee free or low-cost, high-quality, accessible childcare and preschool across the state. I wanted to just serve as a reminder that we also, you know, it's not just us being well when we go on this journey. When a woman starts a business, she's actually creating this ecosystem of business relationships. She's likely to do business and collaborate and procure for them. A business with a female founder and female executive employs 6 times more women. And yes, she's certainly a force of consumerism to be reckoned with purchasing power controlling 80% of the household decisions. When women do well, their families do well, and the community and nation can prosper. But there's a problem. The problem is that it's actually tough to succeed at launching, growing, and staying in business. It can be isolating when you're this small and working remotely. It's exhausting to manage all your competing priorities and that daily striving of what we call, you know, the juggle of work and personal lives. And also harmonizing your ambition, livelihood, and well-being. And what's more, it actually involves considerable risk when you're venturing and raising a family together. So the problem we find is for founders and small business owning mothers everywhere is that business doesn't suit business mums. So that's a bit of the landscape, but you know, I really wanted to help you find and nail that blueprint for success when you're blending business and caring. And here are some of the actionable tips and advice on how you can run a business and balance that. So we've heard that pursuit, it's a bit of a juggle, but what we'd like to do at Mums & Co is reframe it to these sorts of 3 important parts of our lives. A business is a key part of my identity and no doubt yours. I can't switch off from being a mother, and I don't want to, nor can I switch off from being, you know, a business owner. And I need personally to bring my whole sense of self to work. So this mindset, a holistic approach with all these parts, you consider as a bit of a a symphony operating. Ambition is my career and business drive. Livelihood is my family routine and financial obligations. Well-being is my individual sense of self, my mental, spiritual, and physical well-being. And these are all inextricably linked. They need to be treated, like I said, the symphony, where at times one part might be a little bit louder, like when I'm leading an investment round or I'm pitching for a new big client, or work may need to be a little bit softer when I'm caring for one of my sick children and the particularly needy. So having that flexibility, control and blend is what's key. Now, what does that look like in the day-to-day? So here's some strategies that I hope will be of help to you. It's really important to assert your ambition and look at it from perhaps a 3 to 5 year time frame, and re-strategize, revisit it every year. Ambition is certainly a wonderful thing, but like all good things, we do need to allow it to take that time to take a big picture view and to plan to build your business as you do your family over many years. I don't really believe in that sort of fallacy, overnight fallacy. It's certainly a myth, so don't chase it. We were lucky enough to have one of Dr. Brené Brown's facilitator at our conference last week. And one of the speakers reminded us that, give yourself permission slips. We're all familiar with permission slips. I give quite a few to my kids. So whenever you're stepping into that unknown situation where you might feel a little bit, like a fish out of water, write yourself a permission slip, pocket into your pocket. And that permission slip will be something like giving yourself permission to be courageous, confident, and articulate. Another permission slip could be around giving yourself the time to pause and not quit. Being assertive is about that permission to choose yourself and those around you. So be able to articulate what you want and need, and that will directly correlate to your success. I like to work with a couple of statements with people that I have in my world. One of them is actually a statement called a work with me statement. This is a tool that the Chief Operating Officer of Stripe introduced. And it basically is like a modus operandi of how you operate, how you communicate, when you're at your best, what annoys you. It's basically establishing trust at a very early stage with potentially new starters. So I like to use this tool in my business and career. You can do it either way. You can actually give it to your, upper echelons of management, or you can go to your colleagues and peers. And these kinds of statements typically are a statement of company or brand values and your values. So I highly recommend that. And then as a family unit, there's also a similar document, which is known as the family code. So this might be where you decide as a family what your boundaries and values are, what you don't want to persevere with, and what you need to change. So in terms of, in terms of something that we all just need to be mindful of is the language that we use, because the most important person that we need to be assertive with is ourselves. And a societal shift does need to take place in terms of how language is used around ambitious working mothers. Language certainly counts. It influences our perceptions. It will help us to reframe all aspects of life. And so much that we're even crafting our own. At Mums & Co, we have crafted and trademarked, we've coined a term called Mumbition, and that's the unapologetic blending of motherhood and ambition. I do encourage you to try to avoid, or at least reduce, any self-deprecating or justification of your desires and your dreams, your ideas. Practice being positive and being kind as being assertive. No one idea, wish or ambition or need is the same. And when you're being kind and positive and assertive with yourself, just watch how others will become curious and supportive for your ambition along the way. Be conscious of using words like sorry and just. Really don't diminish your brilliance. I often hear women say that their business is just a hobby, or they're not applying for awards because they think that it's bragging, when it's really only sharing and stating the facts. Does being a busy working mum mean that you're overcommitted and disorganized, or is it being productive and successful? Is a side hustle viewed as a hobby, or is it a business owning woman respected as a timely entrepreneur? So applying your well-earned skills is what I think it is, solving customers' problems and making an impact. And then in terms of your mindset, think about how this is all going to end. And, you know, obviously being here today at this summit, we already have the exit in mind. So, you know, in terms of our North Star and how we're actually, the direction that we're moving in. One of our experts and members is Julia Scott. She's a chartered accountant and wealth advisor. And she marks that for men, money represents power, and for women, it represents safety. And one of our previous speakers I heard said it also represents freedom. So we need to wire our relationship with money differently, considering that we are actually the first generation that is in full control of our money. I was reminded that, you know, only as recently as the 1970s, we still needed to ask permission from our husbands and partners for a credit card. We still needed to have their co-signature on mortgages. And men, on the other hand, they've had a relationship with money for a very long time, since the, you know, Mesopotamia period. So there is different considerations and metrics for women in business. We want to go big. We want to consider what our metric of success might look like. And for me, that is, you know, Mums & Co reaching or speaking 30% of the market. That's more than, you know, in Australia, that would be about 100,000 women, and running a multi-million-dollar for purpose company, for making the biggest impact I can for women having choice to do meaningful work and having financial security. And then ultimately for myself, it's also being a great role model. Role modeling for the future generation. What does parenting look like and entrepreneurship look like for my children? Another strategy area that you could look at is how you configure all of this. And I start by looking or believing that livelihood is actually a transferable skill. Recognize that there are transferable skills from being a parent and running a business. Parenting is often our strongest motivation, and yet can at times feel like it's the weakest link. And whilst we want to set a good example for our children and contribute to the household income, we don't want to have to parent like we don't work and work like we aren't parents. So look at where you already are an expert. Recognize how many of those skills are transferable, and it will turn out that business and parenting, management and motherhood go hand in hand. You can certainly apply and transfer that life experience or management training to raising kids whilst building a business. I haven't actually attained my hostage level negotiation skills just within the boardroom. They've certainly been honed at bedtime, at negotiating screen time with my kids. And according to the 2020 World Economic Forum Jobs Report, critical thinking and problem solving top the list of skills that employers believe will grow in prominence in these next, 3 to 5 years. Newly emerging skills include self-management, self-management skills like active learning, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. Again, I can certainly attest that all mums are well versed in these areas. When you look at governance and structures, think about, when you think about that, think about in setting up your business and apply that to motherhood. So I would protect and prioritize your calendars. And I have one for business, one for my family, and one for my well-being. And I every day prioritize that time and space to help me focus. I try to automate as much as I can. and I introduce a lot of processes into my day as well. So for example, two of our members who run a podcast here called Life Admin Hacks, they chunk all their life administration into 2, 10 or 60-minute tasks, depending on the importance and how much mind space you need to actually allocate to those particular tasks. Think about the cadence that you're setting up running your business as a mother. So make sure you pay yourself both for maternity leave, for superannuation or 401ks. They're really important to set aside and plan for that. And I really do encourage you to set up your own personal advisory board. This might include a supportive partner. You could select a successful founder that has kids that might be a few steps ahead of you. We certainly have co-founders, so why not find a co-parent that might be able to step in at all those school and extracurricular activities, or even one of the 30 parties, for example, that my kindergartner has been invited to this year. Communication is certainly key. To have conversations with your family and staff and do this early, recognizing all those parts are integrated and interlinked. This will actually give you, the ambition, livelihood and wellbeing framework actually gives you a framework for communicating, where you can say perhaps to your, on the home front, because tonight I need to focus on preparing for this presentation. You can have, this is for my ambition. And you can have a conversation with yourself that ambition might wait tomorrow because you need to focus on your well-being. I also have an annual planning session with my husband and my children so that as a family, we understand and share our priorities. I mentioned the family code before, and on the same with especially new colleagues and vendors. I would share my work with me statement with them as well. And lastly, some strategies around just know that you're never really alone on this journey. Everything is more realistic and sustainable with the right company around you. We certainly have that in our name in Mums & Co. Think about the team. So, pretty straightforward in terms of selecting the best talent that you can, high performing talent, highly functional, and importantly, build a lot of trust elements into your team and have that synergy in terms of your core values. Find your people. So join networks that appreciate your whole self so that you don't have to do any explaining. Female-based networks that understand that you have caring responsibilities, whether that be for the younger generation or the older generation. And of course, in Australia, that's with Mums & Co. And I believe some global equivalents are Hey Mama, Albright, and Shine Registry. And in terms of the collective impact, take heart that you're making a ripple effect on a generational scale. As parents and carers, we are role modeling entrepreneurship for future generations and being that change that we want our kids to see. So I wish you all the very best on your journey, unapologetically blending your ambition and motherhood. I certainly welcome you to our digital membership as well. You might notice a few different spellings, but we certainly are on a path to create a world where women don't have to choose between their family and careers. Thanks very much.